Here's the thing. These weight loss medications must be paired with real lifestyle changes. Just because you're taking a weight loss medication doesn't mean that you don't still need to work on these things. Your fitness, your nutrition, and some mindset work in there. Otherwise, what happens is you're going to kind of be renting results, sort of, and then perhaps not really getting the results that you really want. And it could also be risky for your health and your longevity. And today I have Dr. Christle back on the podcast for part 2, where we're discussing these GLP-1 medications and food noise specifically. And I have found this very enlightening and just been very interesting. I wonder if you, by the way, and I invite you, if you haven't yet listened to part 1, please stop this here and go back and listen to part 1 to give you a great foundation, because this is where we really break down the medications, the different types and side effects, and why the different types and who they're for in part 1. So please go check that out. I'd like to take a moment here too to mention that Rock That Fitness is partnered with Merrick Health Optimization. So maybe recently, I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen that they've been putting out the message, Merrick Health putting out the message about blood work and actually knowing what's going on with your health. And this isn't just for hormones and sex hormones. This is for your overall health, knowing your blood work and knowing how to optimize your health, especially ladies, those of us who are over 40 or 50, like myself, just how important it is to really know what's going on with our blood work and how to have appropriate treatment, supplementation, if you will. But like I say, Rock That Fitness is partnered with Merrick Health. I have had an outstanding experience with Merrick Health myself for the past year. I don't know where I would be, honestly, without the help that I've had from Merrick Health. So check out the show notes if that's something you're interested in. Rockstars from Rock That Fitness. Remember that we have a special link inside of our members portal. So there's going to be a link in the show notes for anybody. If you're not a member, a client of Rock That Fitness, go check that out, because our partnership with Merrick Health also gives a special deal. So you'll want to go check that out. And, if you want to do Merrick Health through Rock That Fitness, go check it out on my website, and you'll see. Go check out the difference, and you'll see all the information is there if you want to go check that out, if you're interested and you want to know. And always, if you ever want to just, reach out to me, message me, I'm here for you on all the social platforms, the messaging, or email me at Anna at rockthatfitness.com, and I'll be glad to get you hooked up. The thing is, if you go straight to Merrick Health, there's their requirements, right? But if you want to go through Rock That Fitness, we have a special deal. It's in the show notes. Go check it out. And Rockstars from Rock That Fitness, if you're interested in Merrick Health, please go through the members portal, reach out to me, and I'll show you where that is. All right. Again, super excited. We are so pumped. Dr. Christle came back, and like I said, we get a little deeper into the weight loss medications and really more of the lifestyle stuff, and just a lot of considerations that I think a lot of people don't think about, and perhaps even who these medications can benefit. And it may not be just somebody who has a chronic weight problem. It may not be somebody who is obese. And so we get into that. Are these medications beneficial for you if you're a woman over 40 and perhaps you're falling into a normal BMI, body mass index, and you are not overweight, but for some reason you are struggling with what's called food noise? This episode will definitely help you, maybe give you some directions. So I really do hope that it serves you well, and thank you once again for listening. Now let's get into it. Dr. Christle, welcome back to the show. So super excited for this part 2 of our discussion on GLP-1 medications, food noise, and a number of other things that we're going to cover today. So welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna. I really appreciate it. I'm ready to dive in to chat more. Would love to do it. Let's do it.
That's great.
Do it. I'm ready.
I cannot tell you how grateful I am. And this is truly opened up so many discussions and conversations this past week since we did that first episode. Even some of my own Rock That Fitness members reaching out and saying thank you for discussing this and being curious about it. I even have had some people in my email, in the Rockstar Fit Chick weeklies, messaging me and saying, thank you so much for doing this, because I had done, I'm sure in the past, like I said, I've said things that I believed, like that's not the way to go. This is the way to go. But I think it's important to continue to be open-minded and curious, especially in this field of health and fitness, and our overall well-being in terms of those of us who do our practice based on science and research. And so there have been just so many people so thankful. So you are a huge part of that, and I can't thank you enough for being here for us. So today, my plan on the agenda, like I always say, it's a laid back conversation over here, but we like to have an outline. So the things I want to cover today: who are these medications really for? What about long-term use? Are they forever? What about using them off-label? What about the ethical concerns? Some access, talking about how you can get them, the cost, practical considerations, and then discussing lifestyle and integration when it comes to our health and our fitness and our mindset. So those are the basic things I hope we can cover today.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wanted to add to piggyback off of first episode before we dive in?
I can't remember off the top of my head what just drew a blank. So I don't have anything to add right now. So let's just dive right in. Just do it.
Let's talk about who the ideal clients are. I know we touched a little bit on this in the last episode, but I really want to open this up. Can women over 40 who aren't technically obese, but they're struggling with their weight, can they benefit safely?
Yeah, I think people there's enough of a gray area between if you're not clinically obese on the BMI scale and like underweight or like normal BMI. I think there's a far enough spectrum of body shapes, body types, just because, you could be a little overweight and your body composition may be very overfat and very undermuscled. And so I think there are cases where somebody who is not technically obese, probably more towards the overweight category on the BMI scale. But again, when I think about the BMI on an individual level is just not really all, I know a lot of people have a lot of feelings about BMI, but when I look at somebody, I'm also not just looking at their weight. I'm not looking at really at the BMI. I'm also looking at the body composition as well.
Right.
So
yeah, that's a great point. Reminds me, you probably don't even know this. I'm a nurse from the OR, from the operating room. Ooh. So whenever we would see BMI of a patient coming in, it wasn't about body composition. It was about thinking in your mind the size of this body that's coming into the OR. Yeah. So BMI does not take into consideration the composition of someone's body.
You really cracked that whip. I know I rotated in the OR before. I know how, like mad love and respect to all the OR nurses who hold it down because they don't play around. So
yeah. So BMI though, like it's just, I want to just highlight this for just a moment because I want our listeners to totally understand body mass index is what we're talking about. And if you see this, it's a scale. You'll be in the doctor's office. You're going to see this chart on the wall and it's going to show you your height, your weight, and if you're male or female, and it's going to tell you where you land on this chart. Are you overweight? Are you underweight, overweight, average, obese? And many times throughout my life, looking at that chart, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never in the right range.
Yeah, I am actually at the borderline of overweight and obese. I'm like a hair, like 29.3 is my BMI. So, and my body weight or my body fat percentage is totally fine. I'm totally at peace with so yes, there's always that room for yes, I never like giving a no, never, very rare cases. There's always that as a physician, you always see those like one or two cases that patients who come in and like throw whatever it is, like whatever, protocol, whatever, thing you read, and like, will just kind of, humans are not books, like you can't
Yeah.
categorize them. So you always have to like, I'm always having that in the back of my mind when, I'm always asked, questions about like, is this a firm yes or no? I'm like, ugh.
Yes, and this is one of the things, like, I know I haven't known you very long, but this is one of the things that really draws me to you in
Yeah.
particular, your holistic view of a person,
Yeah.
and not just going in and saying, "This is how it's gotta be," across the
Right.
board. But, getting back
Yeah.
to the whole idea of the
Hmm.
food noise,
Yeah.
because this is really what brought me to this topic and to
Yeah.
get into it deeper. If you think
Yeah.
about a woman, I don't know, somewhere between the ages of 40 and 60, who
Yeah.
has struggled with her weight, but not just her weight, but really struggled with this food noise thing. And she may
Yeah.
not be obese. She just may not be on the thin, fit, side, but has struggled. And one of her biggest struggles is this food noise.
Right.
So would you say she would be a possible candidate? I mean, of course, we always want to, consult with a doctor,
Yeah.
possible
Right.
candidate who could benefit from this and give her some peace of mind and finally some food freedom.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for a discussion with a patient who comes in with, how what's their diet history like? What have they always struggled with? What is their current lifestyle looking like now? And I will say that I know another thing that I'm trying to kind of, another topic that I'm really trying to like throw out there for, fitness professionals is, um, you know, does a patient have to have like do all the right steps before they are, they earn their like spot into getting this prescription? And I don't think that's the case. I really think, some people have such anxiety surrounding food noise that actually putting them on the medication allows them to do all the other things that you want them to do. Now I actually feel like I have control over my food. So now I can go to the gym. Now I have like this, this confidence because now I don't feel like I'm a failure. I can do hard things. So I'm going to go do all the things that you actually wanted me to do in the first place, but I needed this medication because I've been struggling for so long with this, food noise and feeling like I've just been this burden that it becomes this downward spiral of despair.
Yeah, it's like it has opened up a whole section of your mind because it's releasing all the energy that your brain was
Yeah.
focused using all this energy, this mental energy on food.
Hmm.
Now is free.
Yeah.
Free to focus that energy in these other things, taking action in these things, the gym, food planning, living your life and not
Oh, yeah.
so overconsumed with that. So that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. So speaking of somebody long term,
Yeah.
do people need to stay on a GLP-1 long term? This is the message that I've heard over and over and over. Once
Hmm.
you're on it, you have to stay on it long term.
Once you start eating healthy and lifting weights, you kind of have to still do it for life to reap the benefits of it. So, for the majority of people who really truly struggle with food noise, have a lot of things, other lifestyle stuff dialed in, and still need that medication, the answer is yes. Um, there are cases I have not, there are cases where people do come off for various reasons and still manage to do okay without it. If you look at the literature, majority of the people who come off the medication over a extended period of time will end up gaining a majority of the weight back.
Mm.
And this is not immediately. So, it's not like, people will just binge their way back, but it's a slow creep over time that they'll just drift back up to what their brain is naturally telling them, like, I need more calories, I'm hungry. But I have heard of cases where people are able to come off of it. Maybe they weren't and I have yet to see that. My best take is that they were able to really focus and dial in on like making sure they get all their fruits and vegetables, making sure they get their protein, cooking their meals, and like with all of that, those other basics to help with satiety, maybe they can get are able to get off of the medication or bring that medication down to a lesser, a dose.
Okay, but that wouldn't be, it sounds to me like that's not the average person that goes onto the medication. That would be an outlier,
Yeah,
somebody
typically.
that decides I want to, now that I have reached this supposedly goal weight, and maybe they have been actually dialing in their nutrition, getting their protein
Mm-hmm.
and strength training, building muscle,
Mm-hmm.
and they're establishing these habits, they may
Mm-hmm.
consider, maybe I have this down now and I
Mm-hmm.
can maybe be released from the medication, maybe experiment without it
Mm-hmm.
for a time. But that doesn't sound like the average person, because it sounds to me like we could look at this medication like we would like thyroid medication.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for example, somebody who
Yeah.
needs that
Yeah.
to function normally. That
Yeah.
is that.
Totally. That is 100% spot on. When people, express their desire to get off of the medication, I do sit down and really tease out like why behind it. Like, is it, because there's shame behind it? Is it because like it's a personal challenge? Are we still
Right.
holding on to that ego of I can do it myself? And those
Mm,
are all valid reasons. I think it's
yeah.
just important to come up, let them know that on average, this is typically what happens, because of the fact that it actually crosses the blood brain barrier and actually affects the hypothalamus in terms
Mm-hmm.
of satiety. Now you're going to have to deal with this, potentially these things down the road, and you may start to increase your calories unexpectedly, which is not a big deal. It's not a failure. And I think that's the other thing too, is reassuring people that if they do decide like I really want to try to get off the medication, you know to make sure that like let them know that they're not a failure if they decide like
Yeah.
if things don't go well, because the science is saying that like now you've removed the hunger of the food noise, and now you're going to bring it back and see how that goes.
Such an important point. I mean, we wouldn't take ourselves off of medication for thyroid or,
Blood.
diabetes if we had a condition that
Right.
we needed it. So that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. I love that you're saying this, because I think that right there is that's like a key point. Like, you think that you have to, muscle out of it, that if you're using this medication, then there's something wrong with you. Like, there's something wrong with you mental, like you're taking this guilt, shame feeling like you're a failure. And this is the part, like this is the
Yeah.
big thing that I really want to drive home, is that if this medication benefits you in your physical body and
Yeah.
your, brain chemically,
Yeah.
then there's no shame in this at all. Like, this is just another great tool, possible tool for somebody.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I really wish I would have, when I was in med school, I think liraglutide, Saxenda came out in like a year or two after I started med school. And like, I remember trying to like lose 5 to 7 pounds, nothing too crazy. The deficit wasn't too overwhelming, but like deep down inside, I would like take all of my meals for the day, like plop it into, next to my desk, because I was a teaching fellow. I was teaching classes to other medical students, and I would get through all 4 meals in the span of an hour, and then I'd spend the next like 7 or 8 hours at work trying to pretend like I wasn't hungry, biting
Mm,
my cuticles, and wondering why do I suck? Like why am I a failure here? But I'm like trying, clearly like I'm doing other things, like I'm doing academic stuff, so like I'm not, this like completely unmotivated, lazy kind of, POS that like, that people who have feelings or bots on the internet seem to think, when they hear about like GLP-1 medications. So it's
yeah.
a crazy, crazy thing to go through. And that is my bias with these drugs, is because I've struggled so much and gone through so much struggling on the inside, that I just got tired of it, and I just didn't want other people to have to go through that. So
This is so fascinating. Can you, this is kind of like putting you on the spot, but
yeah.
perhaps you could share a story of maybe a patient that has struggled in that area of feeling like a failure if they use these medications. Does someone come to mind that you've had breakthroughs with and they've been at peace and they're still on the meds?
I have Yeah, I haven't really had somebody like feel like they're a failure because they're on the meds. I have had like conversations where I have a patient who has started the medication, and then because of insurance problems, the copay was like astounding. Like, you do
Okay.
all the work for the prior auth, and then, like, hooray, and then the copay is still unbelievably expensive, more expensive than just paying out of pocket, which still sucks. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I think it's very she definitely had some feelings of feeling sort of dejected, because it's like, I started this thing, I wasn't sure if it was actually like helpful, sort of helpful, but like now it's getting pulled because it's too expensive. And so having to really work through and um, reminding this patient of like the timeline, I think is also important, because everybody wants a quick fix. Everybody sees
Mm-hmm.
on social media the before and afters, but nobody really remembers what that work to get to that before and
Right.
after really entail. And then also remembering that a really painful kind of line that that I had to go through a lot in training was like, you can't have everything at once. So,
Mm-hmm.
for people who are dieting for a photo shoot or trying to compete on stage, that's all like. A lot of people, like, that's really all they have going. Like, for somebody who's a mom, single mom, two jobs, and I have patients who have,
Yeah.
fit that bill, and trying to make, all of that work, and trying to fit in school. This patient is also a student in grad
Mm.
school,
Wow.
and still getting the meals in, still like making an attempt at cooking, still going to the gym 4 times a week. I have to, really remind them, like, these are wins, even though right now sometimes it may be hard to see. And I still encourage them to also take the picture, even if, take the selfie, even if you don't feel like it, because I know, especially in, you know, when you're in the before phase, sometimes it
Yeah.
is very hard to like want to take pictures, but I think
Sure.
it really, like, you also don't realize how far you've come until
Mm-hmm.
you actually do the comparisons. So I think celebrating the small wins, and like thinking about the timeline, and yeah, it really does suck to like not have that medication, but I think really reframing it to focus on the things you can control for now, is a way to kind of navigate around that.
Yeah. 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 And we're talking about someone who legitimately has what we're calling food noise. How do you distinguish, as a doctor, when you talk
Mm-hmm.
to a patient, how do you distinguish that a person legitimately has the food noise and it's not just something, what am I trying to say? A mindset issue, if that makes sense. And I know mindset is a big word, huge. I'm talking about a habit, a pattern of mind, a pattern of thinking, but not necessarily food noise related to a chemical in their brain. Am I making sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
How do
yeah.
you distinguish that? Because I think there is something to distinguish there.
I think there's a lot of overlap too, with, I think really thinking about the why, and also just getting kind of honest with, what it is that causes, them to like take me through your day. Because a lot of people start off with, I eat healthy, I eat, like, they'll give me that narrative, right? And I know deep down, like, it's probably a little bit of underreporting of
Mm-hmm.
calories, or even just flat out like just telling me what I want to hear.
Mm.
So really taking them through the day and just figuring out where the why, like, okay, so you drink coffee, you don't eat anything throughout the day, and then you get home and then you binge on, XYZ fast food, and or you even, and then why, right? Like, so, thinking about, and then have you ever tried to diet, and what have you tried to diet, and like, what are your goals? And I think sometimes you can really see people's anxiety levels with like, I have to get this weight off fast, I got to do it now, like, I'm in a hurry, and it just you know also thinking about the relationship with food, like, what do you think is healthy, what do you think is a healthy meal, what was your last meal? I think that's also a very good question to ask people, because people will forget, I forget what, like, 2 meals ago what the hell I ate. The last meal is definitely a more telling version of like what the rest of their typical days like. So, oh, I just go to, Wawa or, I guess Buc-ee's. Do you yeah, the
of
gas
course.
station. Like, yeah, exactly. And just
Oh
like
yeah, the Wawa.
Wawa's in Pennsylvania.
That's like on the East Coast.
I know. And then I was like, oh, Texas, Buc-ee's.
Yeah, Buc-ee's. Now I get what you're saying.
the awesome fast like gas station stop with like all the fixins and just get a sandwich, croissant sandwich, and because I'm too busy to do stuff. So I don't know if that's necessary. Yeah, like
you have a screening, like you do, like you, of course you're having a natural conversation with your client,
right,
with your patient, but you are actually screening them with specific questions. This is really interesting.
I want to know about your day. I want to know about what your life is like. And, and from there, like trying to peel away, who are the key players in your life? Do you have support? How do they view exercise? How do they view diets? Like, do they say weird stuff when you come in with like, vegetables and some chicken breast, right? Like, so it doesn't, I think there's just so many layers to kind of tack on, but I think sometimes, I think it gives me a sense of like, I have this stressful time in my life and I am just eating my feelings versus, I have, I truly am hungry, or maybe I just don't think about food. Maybe I'm actually just not aware of like the things I'm putting into my body. And, maybe I need a little bit more guidance on that. Either way, I'm not saying that like one versus the other is like, oh, this person isn't a candidate for, potentially couldn't benefit from,
right.
The GLP-1 medication. But like, I think it really does give me a framework of like, because weight loss is not just about the drug. It really is that overall lifestyle thing that people keep talking about. And I'm not going to get that if I don't know you and your life and what your day-to-day looks like. Cause I can't, I can't figure out how to piece together, I can't just tell you to eat chicken breast and broccoli and give you this like, bodybuilder meal plan and then call it a day. I actually need to work with you, what your culture is, what your goals are, and like what you have at home and what you're able to do. And then slowly start to push on that, right? Like, we're not asking people to go from 0 to 100 like ASAP. I think it really takes a graded approach. It really takes a lot of check-in points, which, unfortunately for doctors, that's really difficult to do in a traditional practice. They usually just, here you go, here's your medication, I'll see you in 3 weeks, and then we can follow up then. So much stuff has happened in 3 weeks. Like you don't even know. So especially when you first give somebody the drug, there's so many side effects to think about, right? And so, which has an impact on the lifestyle portion, which is an everyday thing.
Yeah. That overriding message that I'm hearing over and over as we discuss this is that this is just so individual. And a doctor that understands this and is an expert in this field or understands this on this level is what you need to do. You need to go and consult a doctor about this. I mean, you can't just, but are there some telltale signs that someone could know, like before they go see a doctor? What are some signs that, I really should maybe see a doctor? I think I have food noise. What are some signs that someone could kind of question themselves about?
I mean, I would keep it honestly, I keep it very broad. I think going to a doctor and having that individual consult there's no like, please encourage anybody, but anybody who's actually even failed a diet, felt like, and did some thinking about like, okay, this didn't work, but why, right? Like, was I just really hungry? Was this truly like not sustainable? But even still, I think it's worth having that conversation. I think it's always worth having that conversation. So do yourself a favor. And yeah, if you have not succeeded at kind of getting an overall lifestyle plan, if you failed at a diet, I think it's worth going to a doctor and asking why. Like, please help me figure this out because I want to live an extended life. I want a better quality of life.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I think that does make sense. If you are seriously questioning, if you're listening to this and you're seriously questioning the possibility and you just want some answers, nothing wrong. Absolutely.
No.
Go and talk to your doctor. Do you think that your primary care doctor, now this is getting a little, I know
Oh
we are
boy.
judgy here because I don't think all doctors are informed fully. So how, you know what I'm saying? Like, who do you, I guess that was going to be one of the questions coming up.
Yeah.
And let's put that aside. I'll come back to
Okay.
that.
Okay. A little
It's
shade,
going
a
to
little
open up some
tea.
things.
Yeah. Little tea.
Yeah. Let's talk about this idea that I've been hearing, of course, and seeing across social media and stuff, like this idea that you can get these medications off label for some micro dosing.
Yes.
For non-obese individuals.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening.
It's
What are your
it's very
thoughts on that?
it's very prevalent. When I started taking the medication in January 2022, I was like, why aren't more bodybuilders talking about this? Because the landscape has definitely opened up in the fact that people are a lot more honest about performance enhancing drugs and kind of the safer use model of like mitigating risk, which I'm actually all for because I've seen what happens when it goes underground and all sorts of terrible information is, the standard. And so I hate the word microdosing. I really, truly hate the word microdosing.
Because do they really know what that means?
Right. So, and then when people ask me if I microdose, I had to walk myself backwards. And I'm like, I guess technically I do, but like I don't. I hate saying that because I'm really all about minimizing the side effects and making sure that a patient is able to stay within their calorie target, because nobody's going to be dieting forever. And also when you raise somebody's calories eventually back again into maintenance, some people do struggle with food. Like I don't want people to starve themselves into whatever body weight they are, right? Like they still need to eat the protein. And so, so I'm not for it. I don't recommend that people go and, go off the gray market or even the black market and decide to run off and use, like research chemicals because that's my license and my livelihood. And I'm just not like hard stop. I will, however, I don't turn away people and I just give them the information of like, these are some possible risks. Like I don't do shame. I don't do that shame thing. Right. So I'm still going to provide whatever other care I can to you. But I'm not going to be responsible for managing, these peptides. Like you're kind of on your own with that. If you have any symptoms, we can talk about things. I will probably recommend, that you, at least work with a provider on that. But I'm a lot more libertarian about it, but I don't personally give out those recommendations. And I don't, because of the risks of contamination, you don't know where, and the unregulated space that is, these kind of research peptides that you can buy on the internet. I just, the risk is too much for me to, comfortably say, hey, you should try this website. Like it's not,
Yeah. How are they marketed? What's being marketed? What exactly is being marketed out there? Do you know?
I guess, I'm a little bit more familiar with the bodybuilding space. So it's being, less like a marketing thing and just more of like, I use this in bodybuilding prep for, when I'm dieting down. Is how I've seen it. I've also seen people talk about the potential benefits that are not just weight loss related, some anti-inflammatory benefits, the fact that it can improve fatty liver, disease, kind of independent of the weight loss. And so, people are just sharing their experiences online. I know there are other telehealth companies out there that seem to be a lot more nefarious in that they say that anybody qualifies for stuff, and clearly people who are not of overweight and just kind of seeing like this is okay, like we have patches available, we can do all these other things, and so anybody can get on it is how I have seen some of the Stitch, rage bait replies. I try my best, and it's like a fine line to walk of like, I don't want to see all, like, I don't want to be flooded with all of those ads, but at the same time, like, it's probably good to keep a finger on the pulse of like what's going on out there. So I'm trying
you're seeing it. You're obviously seeing it. Can you bring some clarity, some definitions, some understanding, just for layman's terms, people who don't know what that means when you say peptides? What does that mean? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah. Peptides are just like, they're just structurally, it's just the chemical structure of the molecule, right? So you have these amino acids that are just linked together, are one by one. And so, that's really all it is like the molecular structure when we talk about that. If I had I wish I had like a little, could pull up like a structure, like draw. I was like thinking of like, I can draw it on a whiteboard because that's how old I am. I used to teach chemistry. I used to teach chemistry on a chalkboard. So that's all. Like, so there's many, not every peptide is a hormone. Peptides can be many different things. It's really, we're just talking about it from a chemical point of view.
Do they have names when you see this stuff marketed? Is there a name? Like, this type of peptide has a name, this one? Like, what are we looking at when we hear people talking about this?
So there's some of it includes the GLP-1, hormone. I have to double check to see if that is actually the actual medication is technically a peptide. I want to say it is. Please don't quote me. I'm pretty sure it is. Other peptides in the space are also marketed for recovery. Things like BPC 157, TB 500. Another common one that I'm seeing is like growth hormone, secretagogues. For wellness or recovery or healing is sort of the common phrases that I'm, kind of seeing that being marketed as. And again, thinking about the FDA kind of gray area on that, because there are some peptides that have an FDA indication, but they have an FDA indication such as like HIV, like wasting, or HIV kind of lipodystrophy, where your fat gets redistributed to like, your stomach in certain patients. And so the gray area, like there was just too much gray area for me to feel comfortable about recommending protocols or prescribing, most, if not all of that stuff.
So for everyone listening, I think the important thing here to understand is that there's stuff being out there. There's stuff being marketed to you about all kinds of hormones and weight loss and anti-inflammatory and recovery and all of this stuff. And what's important is that a lot of this stuff that's out there is just out there. It's not necessarily regulated. They could be saying whatever they want. They can sell whatever they want to and call it whatever they want, put a name on it, give you a patch that's doing nothing, and you're wasting money. Like, this is the importance of seeing somebody who's qualified, a clinician, a doctor, to tell you what you need and to actually get you what you need. That's legit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much stuff out there. It's like ridiculous.
It is a lot of stuff, and it's not going to take away, and like it's really not going to take away from, like, if you don't have the boring basics down, if you don't have, if you're not, if you're not eating your fruits and vegetables, you're not eating lean sources of protein, you're not eating healthy fats, you're not getting your sleep, you're not, like overdoing it with your training, and you're not trying to diet yourself into the ground, like all of, like whatever whatever supplement, not medication, whatever supplement is out there is not going to is not going to override all of that.
No.
So I just, that's the boring truth.
Yeah, it is. Nobody likes that. It's not sexy. But going back to this idea of microdosing. It's just simply to understand. I mean, people are just throwing this word around, microdosing. People just don't even know what that means. I mean, and when we're in the medical field, we know that microdosing is basically titration depending on your patient, which you're going to titrate, which means incrementally increase or decrease a medication based on the needs of the patient. So microdosing is going to happen. I mean, it's going to be but it's going to happen right, properly when you have somebody overseeing you. But they use this word microdosing out there, and it just sounds like, we're just humans. We're like, oh, microdosing. I'm just gonna have a little bit, I'm just getting a little micro piece.
Right. So when I looked it up, because everybody kept asking me, what do you think about this person's protocol and their microdosing? What do you think about that? I'm just like, one, I don't like look up other people's protocols to like throw shade. Like, I'm not interested in the like reacts rage.
Oh yeah, me either.
Debate. Gosh, it's just not my thing. And two, it was like using less than the intended, a lower dose than the intended titration like schedule, and or like extending the injection space. So instead of weekly, maybe twice, once every 2 weeks. And I would say that I don't have a lot of people on like the maximum amount of medication. I have people who are close to it, but I think it's also, I've seen too many cases where people will just get the maximum dose according to the FDA schedule, which is a pretty pretty hefty ramp up period. And they complain about all these, side effects, like the nutrition's not like, they're dieting into the ground, they're not training, and they're like, I feel tired, I feel like crap, I have all these symptoms of like, feeling overreached. And they're like, I don't know where to go from here. Like I maxed out on the medication, I'm eating nothing, and I still haven't lost any weight, and I still feel like I have a lot of weight to go. And I'm just like, I just don't know where to start. Like there's so many things here that's like, dial it back. We need to like,
that sounds like just about anything in life, like going all or nothing. The whole thing why doctors are going to titrate you up is to monitor your side effects, to see what's happening slowly over time. And so that's the responsible way to do it. But anyway, I think we've probably beat that into the ground. Let's talk about what we were going to talk about a minute ago about who you're going to see about these. When you have questions and you want to go have a consult, I mean, not every doctor is going to have the information, the expertise in this area. So understand that, for one. So how do people actually get access? I mean, you can go see your primary care doctor, right? Who else can you see?
There are physicians out there who have that, weight loss and weight management as the basis of their practice. Some people are solo. Some people have a team, like a really huge team of like dietitians, strength and conditioning coaches, which I think is awesome. I think it's really great when you're able to kind of delegate, and depending on how that information is delivered, I think can be a really awesome thing. So, but there are other smaller practices, like very local, practices that practice in maybe 1 or 2 states that are still able to, provide that care. I think it's just understanding that provider actually has an understanding of the nutrition side of it and really wants to make sure that the medication dose matches up with the kind of nutrition guidelines, because the last thing you want to do is like max them out on, the medication. They can't eat, they're throwing up everything, and like no nutrients are going in, their workout turns to crap, like they, and all hell has broken loose when we could have just taken a bit of a slower approach.
Yeah. And I feel like I wouldn't be doing a service to our Rock That Fitness members and listeners if I didn't mention this. I've been overseen and under the care of Dr. Merrick Health, which has been outstanding in my own optimization of my own health. And just saying out there to my Rockstar ladies, like we have a partnership with Merrick Health. And they don't just deal with sex hormones. Like
Yeah.
I know we have some members in Rock
Mm-hmm.
That Fitness that are also using some of these GLP-1s, but they're being monitored through Merrick Health, and they have a nutrition coach and all that. So
Right.
just putting a plug in there.
Yeah.
We have a partnership with Merrick Health, and I think they're fantastic. They're fantastic. So let's talk about affordability, getting access to these medications. Insurance covers who? Because I don't think that, I mean, that's probably a very broad question, because it's going to depend on the insurance company, I'm sure.
It's getting better. I guess I've been very blessed in that the kind of insurance stuff that I've had to deal with in practice has been not so terrible right now, knock on wood. But then again, I do have the patient that I'm thinking about who ended up, who ended up having to not, she can't afford the GLP-1 currently, and can't afford the self-pay pricing. Self-pay pricing, I think, is somewhere between, I want to say somewhere between 350 and like 500. On first glance, I was actually just looking at the self-pay for tirzepatide
Is this for,
yesterday.
are you talking about monthly?
Yes, and that's
Okay.
per month. That's
All
per
right.
month. Other places cover it 100%, and I wish I could give you a rhyme or reason as far as like which insurance companies do and which ones don't.
Yeah.
I think United has not been very great in terms of coverage, but most of the other insurance companies have seemed to do okay with covering it. Again, it's always a crapshoot with me. I wish I had a better answer for like this insurance is great, because some of them have clauses about like not covering these drugs specifically for chronic weight management. They will cover it for type 2 diabetes. It's been FDA approved for, I know that tirzepatide has been FDA approved for sleep apnea, but I don't know how some of the insurance companies kind of bob and weave, and then also
Yeah.
if they do cover it, what is the copay, right? Her copay was like in the hundreds of dollars already. I'm like, it's like, that was just a waste of paper or electronic, notes that I had to shuffle around just so you could get a medication that's more expensive than the self-pay price. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say, is that I'm sure insurances are some of them are getting out of it by just having these clauses. Like, we are
Yeah.
only going to do this, cover it if it's for this case, not for chronic weight, not for chronic overweight issues. So yeah, that's a whole nother thing. We don't need to get into all of that. Just see a doctor that knows what they're talking about when it comes to this. And, to me, that's the most important.
I would also use ChatGPT or like some other AI tool to kind of, like prepare yourself for like, here's my story. I'm going to go see, here's my full story. I'm going to go see a doctor. How can I take my story and like maximize it? I'm interested in a GLP-1 medication. How can I like frame this conversation, or what questions can I ask? And I think that's a great way to come prepared, to be honest, because
That's
I
good.
think
Yeah.
I do this
Yeah.
all the time. Like, I'm
Yeah.
on the spot and I'm like, oh, I forgot all these details. I forgot like
Yes.
whatever. And then I don't
Oh, yeah.
have. So I think it does a really good job of like, here are some things to consider. Here is how to frame your questions for, your provider. I've done that. I've done
Right.
that
No, this is great.
I did that as a patient for
Mhm.
my perimenopause stuff. I was
Yeah.
looking for second and a third opinion, and I came in prepared. Like, this is this is how I'm going to summarize my story. Here are the things that are red flag concerning to me. What do you think about, like, this is, what do you think about this?
Yes. No, that's great advice. Yeah. Do the ChatGPT thing. Get as much information as you can, first of all, and then come prepared with your questions. And because when you do that, then you've got questions you probably didn't even think about. And so you're coming prepared. And that's great. Great, great advice. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about, I know we're kind of getting shorter on time here. I can't believe we just go on and on. This is a wild. We talk forever. This really is not going to be a part 3. This is part 2, and we're going to wrap it up. But let's talk about like actually executing on proper lifestyle when you do
Yeah.
decide, or when you do start integrating this medication into your life? How should GLP fit into an overall fat loss or health optimization strategy? Can you kind of walk us through what
Mm-hmm.
would be, the proper way to execute this?
Yeah. I think I think I'm gonna just always draw on this particular patient, just because she's in the front of my mind right now.
Uh-huh.
And I think first and foremost, really trying to sell it as a lifestyle plan, and really
Mm,
always think about it as the long term, and talking about body composition early,
mm,
because especially when you're dealing with people who are new to fitness, man, those newbie gains are like kind of wild.
yeah.
She has, like, on the scale, has not really lost like, the scale doesn't say a whole lot, but when you actually compare the pictures,
Yeah.
the body composition has, like, it's been insane. She's has told me before that her coworkers are like, "How much weight have you lost? You look so
Yes.
different." But, and she's like, "Oh, only like 10 pounds." But we've also gained a whole ton of muscle, and she was completely new to fitness and started lifting while I was working with her, and she was on somebody else was prescribing her GLP-1 at the time. And she was just getting so confused about how to eat, because the information that she had gotten from a previous provider was so kind of wild that I just kind of lost it. And I was like, no, we're going to start from ground one. You're not going to be on an 800 calorie a day diet. That is not
Right.
maintenance. They were literally selling it an 800 calorie a
Wow.
day diet as like maintenance. This is your new normal.
Wow.
I was like, this is not normal.
Wow.
There's a reason why you're feeling like garbage, and it's because you're
Yeah.
eating 800 calories. So
Yeah.
I talked to them about the long-term plan of, like, here's where we need to get you, and it's going to take a long time, but here are the steps, because I don't want you to end up at your goal weight feeling burnt out and tired and then ready to binge back into oblivion. I want this to be permanent. So I think selling them on the scale, talking about body composition, and talking about longevity, the long-term plan, is like, I have to do that not just from the get-go, but constantly remind them throughout this process that you are doing the right things, and listing all the non-scale victories. So I think depending on where they're starting from, because a lot of people are starting from like this kind of deficit, like starvation, but then, periods of like high calories, so it evens out, or they're gaining weight, just trying to get them on a very balanced regimen of, like, let's just take a deep breath, let's just get some meals in. And for a lot of people who are, they're busy, so I do try and see, like, hey, let's try and get some meal prep going. Let's figure out how to cook. What do you like to cook? How can we take those meals and integrate it, like make it a little bit more healthy, bump up the protein, make sure we're getting some good fat in, and then getting them consistent on that, and seeing their scale kind of, settle, right? We're not doing anything. We're setting the foundation for the rest of this journey, right?
Yeah.
And also just a delayed gratification. Like, I know you want this thing right now. I know you want to diet, and you've done all this other work to build into that. And that is awesome. So, teaching them that, and then, thinking about, here, let's do a fat loss phase. And I really am a big proponent of, like, doing it in phases, because trying to diet for
Yeah.
very long periods of time just ends up kind of falling apart, at least for the people that I work with. And so kind of go through that, bring them back up to maintenance, let them recover from, the fat loss dieting, and then repeating that cycle again. Right. So, and then kind of just the same stuff, always checking in, always keeping, seeing how they're what they're going through, how they're dealing with the whole journey emotionally, because that's also an important part of the process. Like, how are you, how do you navigate life now, in this, going through this fitness journey? Like, do people talk to you differently? Do you have different interactions that seem different? Like, how do you feel about it? So that's
Yeah.
kind of like one way to approach things, and everybody's different. But I think taking from somebody who's completely new to
Well, apparently this episode kind of had some glitches in it. Thank you, technology. Sometimes these things happen. We all know. So my apologies. I assure you, you didn't miss a whole lot there at the very end. And I would just want to invite you once again, always just check the show notes. You'll be able to find and connect with Dr. Christle Guevarra down in the show notes. And yeah, thanks for being a part of this episode and listening today. Once again, just apologize for that cutoff. Thank you so much for tuning in again today to our podcast. Thank you for listening. It is such a privilege and an honor to be alongside you in your health and your fitness journey. Remember to check out the show notes. There's always some free resources in there, and I don't want you to miss out on anything new that's coming up in Rock That Fitness. And if nothing else, just remember this: you are a rock star fit woman, and you deserve to give yourself the best opportunity to succeed, lasting and true change in your health and your fitness. If you found value in this today, please share it with somebody. Leave us a 5-star review or any kind of review if you found value in the podcast today or in any of our podcast episodes. And then always remember, self-care, self-love, all day, every day, in all the ways. So stay strong and rock on.